Barakatuh. Today we have a guest, Seema Duhan. She is a public program manager at Zaytuna College in Berkeley, California. Her work at Zaytuna College gives her plentiful opportunities to interact with and appreciate the diversity of American Muslim community, an experience that enriches her spiritual journey. Duhan was born and raised in a Hindu family in Haryana, India. In 2015, she earned an MA in philosophy from California Institute for Integral Studies, and shortly after she embraced Islam. She is passionate about holistic medicine and enjoy hiking and spending time in nature. Let's hear her stories.
Oh, mashallah.
Let's our audience hear directly from you, your stories.
Thank you.
How is the life in
really,
California?
it's amazing life, and I also want to extend my gratitude to your entire team for allowing me to share this experience on such a platform. Apart from the people here at Zaytuna and a bunch of other friends, no one actually knows the story, and I've never shared it on any public platform for sure. And my social media presence is also pretty conspicuous. So where it all began. It began, in retrospect, I would say, probably when I was in 6th grade in my school. One day I came home and I told my parents that I do not believe in this idol worshipping. I don't know what it is. It makes no sense to me. And my parents, who were, especially my father, who was quite liberal, but very practicing Hindu, he said, that's okay. You don't have to do it. But that doesn't mean that I was not interested in religion. I was interested in religion. And from time to time, I would also dabble into Hindu scriptures just to understand who is God, what's my purpose in life. And that kind of continued for some time up until I was into college. When I went to college, I got very interested in New Agey spirituality. I don't know how many people would know, but there used to be a pretty well-known guru from India, Osho Rajneesh. And I was, so much into it. I probably read all his books when I was in university. But even that wasn't providing me any questions. I was interested in Buddhism for some time, but there was always something that was kind of not clicking. Throughout, it was kind of interesting. I don't know how Muslims would find it, but I was very interested in Sufi music. And my favorite singers were Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and Abida Parveen. And every time I would listen to them, I would say, okay, whoever is the God of these singers is my God. Because that God is very compassionate, and that God seems like a universal God. But here I was born in Haryana, and I had never gotten any opportunity to be close to Muslims. So growing up, I didn't know any Muslims. My first interaction with Muslims happened when I was in college, when we went for some college trips and all outside of state, and we met some Muslims, but these Muslims were very secular Muslims, not somebody who would give me any kind of understanding about Islam. So it was more of a secular political engagement that I would have. And then, after finishing my college and then a higher education, master's in film and journalism, I started working in a non-profit. And unfortunately, at that time, my father passed away. When my father passed away in 2009, that was again a time for me to reflect on what is the purpose of life and what is this death thing. And at the same time, I was working in a nonprofit, which was working for minority rights and human rights and whatnot. While working with that nonprofit, I got to visit, well, many parts of the country, but 2 specific states that left a mark on my heart were Gujarat and Orissa. Gujarat was the site of a huge mayhem that happened in 2002 in some cities of the state. And approximately 2,000 Muslims, they were killed, raped, houses, property. They were definitely killed, but many more in thousands who were affected badly. And I visited the houses of many of these victims. One thing that I learned from that was, despite the fact that all these families had left, all these families had been stripped off from their dignity, they had lost their family members, they had lost every material thing that you could talk about, but they were still hanging on to this thread of Islam, or more specifically, I should say, their faith in God. It was so palpable, and I couldn't understand like what on earth was going on with them. They lost everything, but yet here they were, whose faith in God and whose faith in Islam was just so strong. So that was one experience. And then when I went to Orissa, I also got to visit some of the hinterlands of Orissa where not really many people go, because there are no roads, no trains, or even telephone lines at that time. And there I met victims of 2007 Kandhamal riots. These were mostly Christians who were affected by those riots. Something like 700 Christians, they were killed, brutalized, and whatnot. And here again, I found, people still hanging on to their faith, still hanging on to the idea of God. And that made me think about, there is something special about religion which most secular people do not understand, or they don't want to understand. Here I was working in a nonprofit which was in Delhi, in the power circles, and I was seeing all the best of the activists and academics and politicians who would engage in polemics and arguments about what should be, how Indian democracy should look like, and secularism and religion, and what should be their engagement. Can they be limited or not? How much should they be allowed in the public space, and all of that. And I was, the pictures that I had seen in those 2 places made me think that religion is not something that can be pushed back to the private realm, or to be said that you're the reason why you are going through all the brutalities or violence, or your life is miserable, it's because you are a practicing Christian or Muslim or even Hindu, And I was really interested in understanding what this religion thing is, because before that I had not really studied religion, and I was interested in just the idea of religion. And my dad always wanted me to go abroad and, study. So I came to United States to pursue a degree in philosophy. I knew no better. I thought that probably studying philosophy is the best way of understanding religion. And I had no idea that there are some differences in the philosophy and religion. But nonetheless, I studied philosophy, and as God had decreed, my very first class that I took, it was on Islamic philosophy. And it was first time ever I was made aware of all these great theologians and philosophers or scholars in the Muslim world from the beginning up until the recent years. I had no idea even about that geography where Islam originated, what it was. And in that just one course, I was like, okay, whoever these people were, whether I agree with all the ideas or not, but one thing is sure, that they were all very sincere people. I could not doubt their sincerity in what they were proposing or how they were interacting with the text and with the questions, and really rigorous scholarship. And that's how I got interested in Islam, and I wanted to delve deeper into it. And then in 2015, one day I picked up a book on the life of Prophet Muhammad, and the book was Karen Armstrong's book. And must I say that though I'm a pretty good reader, that was the fastest book I had ever read. 3 days straight. I just did not put it down. And I couldn't understand that the biography of a person could be so dramatic and interesting, better than any page turning novel. So here it was. So once I read that, I was like, okay, that was very, very interesting. I want to know more about this religion. And then I somehow, one day I just went to a masjid. Just like that, I walked into a masjid and I told Imam that, listen, I don't know how to pray and I want to learn how to pray. And Imam was like, who is this girl who has walked into this masjid in San Francisco? And he was like, okay, yeah. And he gave me a flyer with Fatiha and the acts of prayer in English and in pictures. I took that flyer. I literally went to the front of the masjid, close to Mihrab, and I started praying there, following the flyer. And a Muslim woman who was kind of in the back, she came running towards me and she said, this is not the place where you should be praying. And I was like, I don't know what you are saying, because she was saying in Arabic. And then Imam came running and he said, let her pray. Don't disturb her. And, after that, that Muslim lady, whenever she would see me in the masjid, she would try to have a conversation, but I didn't know Arabic. I wouldn't know what she was saying, and I had to excuse myself. Anyways, that flyer was something, I could read Fatiha translation in English. And again, it dawned upon me that I really, my heart resonates with this Fatiha, this prayer. I had never heard of a prayer like that. And so, then I tried to, I found out that Muslims memorize Fatiha, and that's how they pray. And I also tried to memorize it by listening to Fatiha on YouTube. Not that I got it perfect, but I to me, it was perfect at that time. I thought that, yeah, I'm able to recognize all the words and whatnot. Later, I got to know that, yeah, my tajweed had so many issues. But nonetheless, I memorized it in whatever capacity I could. And then that year, I fasted Ramadan. And that Ramadan was certainly the longest Ramadan, or the day were the longest for that Ramadan in 2015. I would say on an average, 18 hours long days. And I was also working part-time in a restaurant, but I fasted the entire month. And it was crazy. I was like, okay, here was a girl who never believed in fasting. I mean, for instance, Hindus fast as well, and I would always make fun of fasting. I just could not wrap my head around which God would be happy by starving people off. Anyways, I was fasting and I was working in a restaurant as well. And I survived a month without food and water. And I had to grapple with that reality that, okay, this is something beyond my body experience. It was definitely not something that I could have done just by myself if it was not decreed for me. There was something else that was sustaining me, because for such a long period of time, I was without water and food, and it was pretty hot summertime at that time. So that happened. And then 1.5 months later, I was talking to a professor of mine who taught me Islamic philosophy. And he was a Catholic professor. He had cancer at that time, prostate cancer, and I called him to just check up on him. And we spoke for like an hour, and towards the end of the call, I made a comment. You know what? I've been thinking of becoming a Muslim and take Shahada. And he said, so what's stopping you from doing that? I said, not really anything, except that I don't know what are the timings of mosque. By that time, I had moved to another city. And I didn't know the mosque timings at that time. He said, try it, just go to mosque just like that and see if it's open, then, it's for you to take Shahada today, or if not, then, try it another day. And since I decided that I'm going to take Shahada, like everything that happened until I took my Shahada, it was like God was dropping signs after signs after signs in those 3 hours since I decided, and I went to the mosque. And then I went to the mosque, and there were sisters who nobody was there actually in the mosque except the sisters whose Arabic class had just ended. And I showed up and I asked, is there an imam there? I want to become Muslim. And they were like, what? So everyone was just so elated, but they asked me some questions. Is anyone forcing you to become a Muslim? And I said, no. What sort of question is that? Why would anyone force me? Has anyone bribed you to be a Muslim? And I said, no, I'm just becoming Muslim by my own will. And so after those bunch of questions, I took Shahada with these sisters, and I became Muslim. It was interesting because I never thought that it would be such a simple ceremony to become a Muslim, not super grand, or I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah, it was very simple ceremony. So, which was interesting thing. And over the years, as I've become Muslim and I've kind of grown up into my practice, I've realized what a simple religion it is, which a simple religion on face, but a religion that really demands a lot from you internally. So that's how I became Muslim in 2015. And I would stop here if you have any questions.
Yeah, there is no scope of question, I think, because here I felt question is not a matter, because it's very well narrated story and really interesting, remarkable. So let's hear some more about that. How is a life now in California? What is the change you feel now after maybe, because you were talking about the first days and embracing Islam, I think it's a long journey now. What is the feeling, now when you take fasting now, after a long time?
Yeah. So Ramadan is very, very special for me. I would say special than even prayers, I would say, to some degree. Because this, I mean, okay, I started praying, or I memorized Fatiha, but it's Ramadan that kind of unlocked the key in my heart when it comes to spirituality. I don't think I would have had become a Muslim if I hadn't felt a deep connection with God. And it was my first major spiritual experience. And after that, Ramadan is the time when I look forward to going deeper on that journey, and on that journey of cleansing myself, cleansing my heart, getting closer to God. And it's an experience for sure, and it's an experience that I would say every year it has shown me different kind of colors, like what it means to be a Muslim. No Ramadan has been the same, every Ramadan something new would come up. Last Ramadan, first time I did itikaf, and after doing that itikaf, I don't think that I can go back.